So, my next guest, Kevin the Wolf. How do you usually introduce yourself in English? Do you do it the Dutch way, your last name, or do you pronounce it?
Or I switched it a little bit to like Wolf, just Wolf, because da is like, they can't handle it. So I'm like, okay, Kevin Wolf, and then still it's like, the pronunciation is different. So then I'm like, oh, just like the animal, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Just like the animal. Yeah. What's your purpose of your visit to the Netherlands?
It's family and friends. Just Christmas break. We were lucky enough also to close down operations for the last week of the year. So
Operations
it was,
for what do you mean?
for work for Doka. So it was also easy to come here, and as you know, and we also still have a place here, so it's easy to come by, and with a 6-hour flight, you're here
Right.
before you know it.
Yeah, and this is a recurring thing, right? You're not you're frequenting the
Yes.
Netherlands quite a bit.
Yeah, as much as possible. I mean, my life is in the US. The business is in the US. But of course, like family and friends are also here. And this is also where you come from. This is also where a part of my life is. So I definitely also want to spend time here.
How hard is it for you to strike that balance between being there and being also close to good friends and family here in Holland?
It changes over time, I think, but I'm lucky enough to have a group of family and friends. When I'm here, when we are here, we're here, and we're taken into everything that is going on. And when you're not here, it's also okay. So I think it's also how you see it yourself. I mean, like a lot of people will also say like the world is your oyster. And I truly believe that's the case.
You feel it that way?
Yeah, I do. I'm lucky enough also to travel around, not only here, but also for work or privately. And it's just a mentality switch. Sometimes I also feel it is how you feel it yourself, or who you have around you, which make it feel at home, or how big the world actually is. So
It sounds like you feel like you're privileged in a way.
oh, absolutely, yeah, I feel very privileged, to of course have a home here, have a home in New York. I think ever since I was a little kid, the US, or what the US stands for, always has had a certain attraction to me. So also being there now, and also having a life, is absolutely a dream.
So it
coming
didn't
true.
disappoint the US or New York City per se.
No, I had long time ago, I was also lucky enough to spend some time also on the West Coast already.
Ah, right.
But
LA.
LA, yeah, and but the past 4, 5, 6 years, just have been, including Corona and everything. It's just amazing to build a new life. And like I said, ever since I was little, it had a certain attraction. And some people will say the American dream is dead. I absolutely do not believe that. I also don't think like the Dutch dream is dead or anything. It's a way of thinking, but absolutely, it is a privilege to do it, and it's a privilege to be there.
Yeah. I wonder if the Dutch ever had a. We're not dreamers per se,
No.
as I think the Americans are in a way.
Right. Well, yeah, it's fun. I truly think so as well. But there was a time maybe when Dutch people were dreamers and were traveling everywhere in the world and actually settled a place like New York as New Amsterdam. So there's maybe not dreamers, but we do have. I think Dutch people in general have, an entrepreneurial spirit, and that's of course super important as well. Therefore, I think I actually got the question recently from a coworker, like, so do you feel more American now? I'm like, no, I'm absolutely. I think I'm absolutely different, and I'm absolutely European, not necessarily Dutch, but there's a lot of heritage, of course, that you get from your culture and from where you come from, and of course now it's blended with, also where you're living and working now.
To what extent do you feel a New Yorker? Because to me, New York is not the United States, like Amsterdam
No,
is not Holland.
yeah.
And there's it's such a difference.
Yeah.
So do you feel much more a New Yorker than you feel yourself to be an American?
Yeah, New York is a bubble, of course, and
A bubble in a bubble
a bubble
in a
in a
bubble.
bubble in a bubble. Yeah, it's you know it as well. I mean, sometimes you also look around and you think like, okay, this is not normal. If you look around in your group of friends that are that all have a privilege, you know, life in that sense, and have certain education, have certain jobs and everything. That is not typical, but it's all, you know, everything is sort of like the city has a, you know, it's like a vacuum machine or vacuum, you know, getting all that talent in. So it's very different from, you know, a place like Rotterdam where I come from. You know, that's a lot less. You know, even here it is less. I mean, Amsterdam seems to be a village next to a city like New York. And yes, I think New York in itself, with being so progressive, is a lot different from rural America. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's part of the attraction of a city like New York. So much so that so many people put up with all the negative sides that city certainly has as well. What negative side most prevails for you?
I actually thought about it recently. It's like you know, how would you say it in Dutch? The beste rotstad die er is. So that, you know, the worst city to be in, but still you want to be there or something.
Right. The worst best city.
The worst best city, you know, but it's still, it feels like your city in that sense. But all, you know, yeah, you know, the things are right. Of course, sometimes you walk past by, you know, you step out of your apartment building, which, you know, which is so expensive, and then, you know, there's 3 homeless people standing next to it. So the difference between having privilege or having nothing is very big and in your face.
Yeah.
I think also sometimes the smell sometimes you have is also something, you know, that people say around Christmas time, like, oh, it's so magical, but it's kind of smelly, and there's kind of a whole lot of people
on
like,
TV doesn't have smell, and that's the whole thing. So the movie is romanticized in a bit. I think so.
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, those kind of things, and of course it's freaking expensive. Like you know, I haven't come across. The good thing is wherever you go, everything seems on sale. But you know, when you're there, it's like, you know, it's a lot in, you know, how you're taxed, how everything that you spend, everything that you do, living outside, doing stuff. I mean, you know, from drinks to food, like everything is expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sometimes unheard of. Yeah? Sometimes people that come from here, like, you know, fall off their chair if they see a certain, you know, restaurant bill or anything.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
Services, the prices of services are insane.
Extremely high.
The prices of goods, I think, are at a lower level.
Yeah.
Compared to Europe.
Yeah.
It's this reversed.
Yeah.
So in Holland versus the United States, one of the typical differences is that we see is that being happy about, genuinely happy about somebody else's success.
Yeah.
You see it more often in America than you would see it here.
Yeah.
And how do you see that coming back in your life in New York City?
No, I think that's clear. It's one of the, I think it's one of the differences between Dutch culture and American culture. In Dutch culture, you have a saying also, and I hate it, is like, please act normal because it's crazy enough. I think we all have been brought up like that. I know I have. And for me, it's sort of like settles for mediocrity. Like, or if you have a certain talent, you know, people will sometimes not help you with it, but they will try to push you down, you know, to be part of the masses.
It's not reinforcing.
No, and I think it is changing. But I have, to be honest, like when I was little, I didn't feel fully at home in a place like the Netherlands, and especially not in rural Netherlands, you know, where I come from. And it is completely different. Like like
you felt like you were being held back by that
or not understood, or not part of the bigger picture. And I do think like a saying in that Americans have, that they can truly say like, good for you, and they mean it. Like,
it's not sarcastic, eh?
It's not sarcastic. No, they can actually mean it, and would want to look at it like, how can I use that actually to maybe also become more successful, or how did you do it, instead of looking at it and thinking like, why don't I have that? Which is more part of a Dutch mentality in a way. That's not, to talk, more or less, about the different cultures, but it's just a difference in I think upbringing.
Yeah.
And seeing the world, and I mean, another thing is I think from the European setting, if you are the runner-up, you would be like, the runner-up. In the US, you're the first loser.
You're the first loser.
The first loser.
There's nothing else but the winner.
Yes, and it fits me a little bit more, I think, than had to just have this sauce of everybody is good or anything. No, celebrate the extra accomplishment.
It sounds like you need a competition.
I I like a healthy competition. Yeah, I think it came from bringing up, growing up, and a little bit of racing and everything. That's part of the deal. Yeah,
kart racing, right?
Kart racing. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's ever since I was little, of course, like since I was like 7, 8, started with that. So there needs to be a certain degree of speed and a healthy competition that helps with me.
It shows in your career as well. It has been progressing rapidly. To what extent has that competition element has been driving you forward in your career? Is it playing a different role now, further on in your career, than it might have had earlier on?
Yeah, I think so. I started very young, of course, when I was like 18, in a sort of like dual kind of setting, where did Nijrode and
that was a PwC,
PwC
accounting track.
Yeah, accounting track. That was a different Kevin. That probably, he had sort of like, a full focus on something and wanted to achieve, certain goals, and just went for it.
And what was driving it? That particular moment,
deal,
what drove you forward?
That, just not like going to study and going to college.
Yeah.
I think I wanted a certain independence, I think. And also I just did it, for me, it didn't fit to just study. I couldn't see how that could like fully be an accomplishment to me, which sounds crazy maybe in a way, but I just wanted more. And until the day of today, I don't regret that. I don't know if I know what I know now, I would make the same decision, but I'm not unhappy about it, and about everything.
Why would you have made a different decision? Did it came at a certain price, that mentality?
Oh yes, yeah. I think, the counter side of it was that, when I was 25, 26, I had a full burnout. Yeah, because, I was thinking I could have it all. I could, like, for work, travel all over the world, through all different time zones. I could have, a relationship on the other side of the world. I could have all my social things going on. At some point, my body just said like, okay, this is not how it's supposed to be. So
it was 6, 7 years into your PwC career.
Yeah, actually, I was already at FrieslandCampina. It was the start of that. Yeah.
Yeah. How has that experience changed the way you approach work?
Totally. I think, going through that and thinking that you're Superman and you can do everything, you need a reality check. And that was my reality check. I also think that will not happen to me anymore. Something like that I truly, I just couldn't function. If I saw a laptop, I started shaking. It's, you know,
Yeah.
if I think about that now, I know there's also people out there who would say like, oh, it's not real. It is real. Like, you know, I may have been someone before that who would have said, you know, is that really...
Stop
is
being
that,
a crybaby.
right.
Just
Right.
carry on.
But I had it. And everything stopped. And it was a moment where of course, you know, I don't look back at it and say like, oh, what a fun period. But it is one of the periods that taught me so much, you know, about myself, that I have an off button, that, you know, there's more than just chasing all your goals. And I think that's also the start of really embracing, you know, also a lot of differences in people, and how to connect that with each other.
Does it change the way you manage your team
Absolutely.
right now?
Yeah, I hope so. In a sense, I truly feel, you know, now being in a CFO position, and this is really how I think. I can only be successful if other people are successful. It is not more, and it's not less than that. So a large part of my job is to help others succeed, you know, in what they want to achieve, and if they don't, to help them
Right.
in a way that they can do that. So I truly think that is a different. If you had the Kevin, you know, pre that circumstance, you know, with a burnout and of course all the experience, you know, that you've gained, yeah, that was, you know, probably I would have been a more pushy, you know, direct person. So I do think, you know, embracing that and understanding differences between people, and that not everybody is the same, for very good reasons. Did make me a better manager, a better person.
Yeah, and having worked for you quite some years, I know a bit about your ways. And having that said, you're still that demanding manager, right? You won't settle for
mediocrity.
No.
Yeah.
Not for you,
Yeah.
right? But also not within your team.
I think ultimately, you know, one of the things I try to go by is, you know, never perfect, every day a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Baby steps. Progress. Yeah. Because if there's not, you know, then in the end, you know, the industry, the company, the department moves in a certain direction, and that particular person can also not, you know, keep up or anything. So it is my, you know, I agree with you. I can be maybe demanding, but it's all in the greater purpose of making everybody better.
Yeah.
Because that, you know, I do feel and hope that you also feel that, you know, it helped you, but it also certainly helped me.
I'm not complaining, and I mean it in the best way possible. That's not what I'm saying, but it's also part of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the key to your success, right? Your drive. If you look at your career from PwC, starting at 18, making your way to FrieslandCampina, where you had a lot of international exposure. You've seen a lot globally of a lot of the operating companies of FrieslandCampina, internal audit, and in the ingredients business group, supply chain. And you went to the US. And I want to talk about your position now at Doka first. So let's start at the end.
Let's start at the end.
Currently Chief Financial Officer, Doka USA.
Yeah.
What does Doka do?
Yeah, Doka is a company in the construction world. In the construction world, they're very, very known. It's one of the largest forming and shoring companies in the world. Several billions of dollars globally. And what, you know, how to explain it, because before stepping into this,
I don't know nothing about construction.
Know that, but also formwork, I didn't really know. But how you could see that? So, you know, take for instance, you know, the Hudson Yards in New York. You know, a lot of those towers have been built with the help of Doka, and basically what
beautiful project.
Beautiful project, yeah. Before my time, but very, very cool.
No credits for Kevin.
No credit. No, not at all, not at all. Within finance or being a CFO, not a lot of credit in general. Basically, what Doka does is creating forms to actually form a building. So a mold, basically, to actually help form the concrete cores of all those structures.
For all the high rises in a city like
New York. Or tunnels, bridges, basically everything. So as soon as, an architect has an idea and they're done and there's a developer, the people from Doka, and in Dutch you would translate it into something like bekisting, which is not fair, and it doesn't do right to what they actually. Oh, absolutely. There's 150 engineers, working, on all those projects, because the architect has a certain idea, and then actually it comes to us to help form that structure, to help, make that a reality. So it is so much more than that, it's actually making, the things that people look at or drive through or drive over, or, all those kind of things. So it's
so tangible.
Right? It's very tangible, yeah.
It's like the very opposite of working at a bank.
Yeah, it is. I mean, now also, I think there's maybe 10 to 20 different projects, medium, high rise, in New York, in Brooklyn, in Manhattan, in Long Island City.
There's something in your hometown as well.
In Rotterdam. Yeah, they are. So Doka Netherlands indeed does a project there for the Central Post.
Yeah.
So they're building a medium or high rise there as well. So they're using Doka technology and formwork there as well. But it's really interesting also stepping out, because also at PwC there was a strong focus for me already in chemicals or in food and beverages or in fast moving consumer goods, and this was something completely different, which to me also feels I was at a crossroad. There was a very cool opportunity within FrieslandCampina. It involved going somewhere where we didn't want to go.
But it was still cool.
It was very cool, yeah, absolutely. And nothing but good there. But, I had to go in another direction because it would have been too easy to stay within FrieslandCampina, or, I was lucky enough at the moment that the Doka opportunity came by, that there were other opportunities as well, and they were in fast moving consumer goods kind of companies, and this was a very deliberate decision, because for me also it came more to the fact that if I don't do it now, like a switch, it's probably not going to happen anymore.
It was 14 years into your career,
right? Yeah, at Friesland, yeah. But also it was a chance to actually see, okay, have I learned certain tricks, or can I really, help continue to build a company?
Did you grow smart within the system, or are you really good?
Correct. I think that was, and then also bringing, a certain diversity in, from completely different industries. That also helps, in that sense, Doka or the Doka company further. So I think, the diversity part in it, and the fact that it was just something completely different was too good to be true, and very cool people that I've met. So I had to make that jump, and I love it.
The jump, this wasn't a decision you took lightly, I know for a fact.
No, not at all. No, it took some time also to really shake off, a company like FrieslandCampina, just like you, but so many others, great people that you've worked with over the years, and
opportunities endless.
Endless opportunities that you also had, that you can also get to, but also just a good culture in general. So saying goodbye to that is not something I take lightly. If I, especially if you were there 10 years, I was there 13 years, till the day, actually, 13 years.
Did you wait it for that moment deliberately on the 13 years?
Yeah,
Was it, no?
No.
You're not that symbolic.
Lucky,
Or too practical
lucky
for
number
that.
13. Yeah. No, but it's you grow with a company, of course, from not an infant stage, but adolescent stage or something
But professionally maybe, that's very true.
Yeah,
at least for me, yeah.
So it does, and which is also good. I need to connect with a company because I spend so much time there. I love working in a way. I don't see it always as work, and I need that. I need that connection. So it wasn't bad, but it's also good looking back that moment came. It would have been too easy to go with the flow and maybe not make the right decision for me.
Yeah.
While it was maybe a good or a right decision for the company, and that those two need to align, and then you need to ultimately choose for yourself.
What was your biggest fear if you would have stayed on and carried on at FrieslandCampina?
Yeah, I think
it can't be that bad, right? I mean,
yeah, you know what's there in that sense.
Exactly.
No, I think looking back, there have been signals where it's not fair, if the company moves in a certain direction or wants certain change, that you look at it and go like, we've tried it or we've done it or anything. That is not the type of leader that I am or that I want to be. And that was happening a couple of times after 13 years. I think also it's a large company. It's a global multinational. And at some point also, that whole multinational thinking and everything is a certain way of working.
Yeah.
And at some point, you might get locked into it in a sense of that you can't get out anymore. So that was something maybe that was also part of the reasoning for myself. And at some point, like I said, in a way, like, okay, do I know certain tricks or can I really do something? Am I really good at something?
And what's the conclusion? I mean, I haven't kicked you out of Doka yet.
Thank God. Yeah. No. I'm having a great time. The company is doing well. We're doing well in the US. Lots of growth.
Yeah.
So I think it's very difficult for me to say like I'm doing a good job. That's absolutely not, and that's for others to determine. But I'm having an awful good time.
You're being too modest. I think you know exactly how well you are doing. Right?
I'm having a good time, which is ultimately for each and everyone, whether it's me or somebody else.
Yeah.
Which is the most important thing, that you're having fun. You spend an awful lot of time being in, working more time than with your family and friends or whatever.
But that's what I admire about the way you approach work, which is, I think, part of the way you are wired, which is different from me. I always try to have that separation between what's private and what's work. I think what I see, the way you operate, everything blends in. Yeah, it seems to me that you cannot tell whether you're working or having a private moment. It's to me it seems like you're always on 24/7, but to you it just feels like this is my natural way of being.
Yes, yeah, it's just who I am. I also admire, for instance, you, and then maybe I'll also counter the question like how you do it, but to really have on and off switches in that sense. For me, private life doesn't end when I step into the office, nor work doesn't stop when I leave the office. It's indeed blended in, and I need that as a person.
Yeah.
I also don't mind, saying something comes in now, okay, I'll take care of it. Or if something privately comes up, I need a degree of freedom, and I also always want to give that to people, because I think that is helpful, because everybody needs to bring their total self in, you know, to make fully use of someone, or like all the capabilities and talents that people have. So, you know, my question also to you would be like, how do you do that? Like how to compartment that in a way?
I think it's as easy as the way you do it. It's just a natural thing.
Yeah.
It's just a different way of working. I don't have trouble shutting off, and when I shut off, I do shut off, right? So I think I'm not sure what scenario is a better recipe for success.
Right.
I think there are
Depends on the person.
Yeah, I think there are top performers doing either or.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. It's just I think the question is what suits you best.
Yeah,
to me,
what fits you best.
This comes naturally. Back to FrieslandCampina, you talked about culture, and you said I liked working for FrieslandCampina, and I like the culture. Can you make the culture part a bit more specific?
No nonsense, quite open-hearted, a little bit Dutch focused. Yeah, in that way, which is easier if you're Dutch, I think also.
Yeah.
But and doers, like let's get it done.
Also on a mid and senior management level, I feel.
Yeah, you know, let's roll up the sleeves and let's get it done. I like that. Like, you know, in that sense, let's do it together. And I hope, you know, with everything going on there now also, what you read in the papers and everything, and hear from people that in the end still would be the case, because it would be sad, you know, to lose that.
Yeah, significant amount of layoffs.
Yeah.
Which is tragic. Much of the people we know personally.
Yeah.
Which is well.
Yeah, we left.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Yeah, it could be. It could be. Let's see.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't think so.
No. Me neither.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's a lovely company it's an international company with a very, very Dutch flavor to it.
Yeah.
Even working for FrieslandCampina in the US.
Yeah.
It was not like my wife worked in a real American company, and she came back with stories and I think about this is the hierarchy I would expect in an American company. So much more like FrieslandCampina, where you still had that European flavor even ingrained into the American side of the business.
Yeah. No, I can only agree, and maybe that was sometimes also why that did not bring all the success, you know, for instance, in the US, because still it's very focused from a European mindset. One of the things I actually said in some of my job interviews that I had was that, especially when it were European companies, you know, with an American business to it, is I think, you know, it doesn't work if a European company tries to copy things into the US. They just don't take it.
No.
It's in general.
It's a vastly different market.
Vastly different.
Seems familiar, but it's not.
It's not. You know, we sometimes seem to think, maybe as Dutch people or European people, we speak English, so we understand it. But there's so much differences in American culture, in that island that is called, you know, the US, basically. That it's a whole different ball game. So if we try to copy things from Europe towards the US, I don't always see the fit. The other way around is easier. They can copy things and will accept it, because there's a certain degree of also looking at it and it works there, so we accept it. Also,
it's America and the influence is big enough.
If you also see now all the things, you know, in food, for instance, like it was always Europe driving it, you know, the innovation and everything. Now it's all coming from the US. You need to be there, you need to see what's happening there, and it, you know, goes like oil over to other Western countries.
So it sounds like you would prefer more autonomy for U.S. operating units and less involvement from a corporate perspective.
Yeah. So what I you know, how I framed it also a couple of times is that, you know, if I'm involved in the US, and there's a European center of gravity, it's not so much, I don't want to help form an American branch owned by a European mother, so to say. No, it needs to be an American company owned by a European entity, which is completely different. There needs to be a set of, authority and ways of, doing innovation and creating products
Right.
for that particular market, because it's too easy to think, okay, we'll just copy and paste. They're not taking it.
So it can be a cash flow relation, but managerially speaking, you want to keep that unit separate.
You truly need to build, an American company being in the US, and of course, there's a European influence. Of course, needs to be. It's also different. It's also what will attract people towards it. But it shouldn't be an American branch. It should be an American company, and ultimately, it's owned by a European entity.
Yeah, and I think I like that setup. In general, what you see nowadays with companies, that they're split in such the corporates have a complex structure where you have the supply chain split it and the market split it, and I like that more simple geographic approach where you just have your geographies, your regions, and your countries, and keep them entrepreneurial as much as possible, and that's it. To me, that's so much simpler than having this entire
matrix,
which is in a way, right? In principle, it's a trade-off. I can see the benefit, but also it makes decision making slow and complex.
We've gone through that also, of course, in a way that I agree. For fast decision making, you need to be in the market, and you need to have your authority also over the supply chain. The other part only is, especially if you're a big multinational, there needs to be a certain standard as well, and safety measures and those kind of things. And that is, of course, always the difficulty if you grow to a certain size as an entity. How do you make that piece? How do you do that? How do you make sure that it goes well? So, but it's difficult, and it has both have pros and cons, and
that's it, right? There's no solution.
There's no solution, and like with everything, like you see, sort of like a tendency to switch one side, and then after multiple years you switch a little bit back, and it's if you zoom out, you see that.
It's the same with the shared service center mentality, right?
Yeah.
At some point, all the big companies, they shift towards the shared service center dynamic, and then they see, okay, this is complex as well, and then they move back. It's all those flows.
It's flow, because ultimately you also realize that it's different cultures that you need to combine. And if you just look at your screen and you're not in the market, it's different. You don't have that feeling, or you can't always have the full view on what's happening. You only see a very small part. Funny, completely different thing maybe, AI, everybody's talking about it, and I would love it, actually with my team, for this year, in different setups with procurement, IT, business control, finance, we are going to experiment with using AI or ChatGPT or something, or all those different kind of engines, just to experiment like what is possible now to be also on the ball. But one of the things is that, everybody talks about it, of course, it's a massive movement, and it is, like, don't get me wrong, I don't want to like make that smaller, but it's all starting with proper data. If you give an AI engine, if you don't give it the proper data, you don't get the right outcome, because
which is nothing new, right? Even before the AI era, we had the same thing, right? Garbage in, garbage out. The story is as old as whatever.
Yes. So that is funny. Sometimes we all get into that high, but we shouldn't forget that ultimately it also starts with having your basics in order.
So basically, AI is not going to be the solution for the company who was not able to implement standard ERP system in the first place because of their basic data structures.
It could be, yeah, it could be. So I was actually experimenting during second Christmas day with my
you see,
with
this
my
is my point.
in-laws.
This is my point exactly.
Yeah, with my in-laws who have also like a small type of construction company, and we were just trying to figure putting some data in and see what was all possible through Excel, and
Yeah.
how it could make graphs and everything through ChatGPT. Yeah, super interesting, of course. The amount of speed that you gain is incredible, and also how it understands what you actually mean. But imagine making business decisions on that, and you're putting indeed garbage in. Yeah, it's not gonna make the data better.
No.
It's gonna present it in a certain way, can do certain calculations that we can also do as humans, but it takes more time. And the thing behind it is sometimes is where the logicality that you sometimes have as a person is maybe partly outside of the mix, and that can be dangerous, of course, or not fully understanding what you're dealing with or what you're doing.
There's so much possible. What
Right.
I do, at least I use it as my personal assistant.
Yes,
which is
yeah.
very easy.
Yeah.
Right. Get an email framework out. Things like that.
Which is amazing.
It's great. You need to be careful too. I received one email, I think it was just last year, a rather lengthy email from a person I know who wasn't really that skilled in the English language. And I was like, wow, the grammar and everything is just spot on. This is just insane, right? And it backfires if you don't use it genuinely and with a bit of thought behind it.
But I mean, I was also thinking like that, just making certain templates or something, just randomly for a credit and collection process or a legal process or anything. Yeah, it's of course at your fingertips.
Yeah, formal letters, all that stuff which would normally take you just at least an hour to get it out right, and then you're wordsmithing every little thing, and then you try to look for formats on Google. It doesn't already exist, and you need to pay $10 for something you don't know if it's really good
you don't
quality.
Want it or anything.
And now you have it for free.
Now you have it.
The only difficult part is experimenting with that is with the data security, putting in your company data.
Absolutely.
So I think a no still.
Yeah. So. That also counts for us, of course. So, but I think experimenting with it, and it's I'm also starting this year, for instance, the whole world works with Teams.
Yeah,
of course. But does everybody make maximum use of the infrastructure of Teams? Probably not, because we all do our basic calls through it and everything. But it's so much easier also to collaborate, through Teams, and having all the data, real time at your fingertip. But if you see, if I, and I just can inside see it from FrieslandCampina, if I rewind a lot, seeing it in at PwC at multiple companies, but now also within Doka, it is amazing, of course, how much we do not make use of it, or that multiple files of the same PowerPoint are floating around through emails, and everybody has a different version, and all those kind of things. So it's just really I think ChatGPT and but also just making use of the efficiency that we all have on our computers. That is already a major gain, if we all make use of everything that is at our fingertips.
Yeah, well, the younger generation will get us there eventually. I still come across some people who still find it difficult to collaborate on Teams. This shared environment, you need to collaborate with 10 people. And there's always this one person who sends you an email with a copy of the file saying, hey, I made my adjustments, here you go. Like 100 adjustments. Like, what am I supposed to do with it? I'm not consolidating anymore.
Yeah, okay, go through every. No, that
it happens.
It does.
Let's talk about. I think that's an interesting perspective. You as a CFO and being in managerial positions for quite some time, managing teams. What do you look for in in general, so regardless of the position, but what do you look for when you hire a financial team member?
Yeah, that's ultimately, the drive that I feel in a person. That of course, depending on the job and how senior it is, you need to have a set of basics in education or anything,
Sure.
or at least but that's a prerequisite, so to say. But maybe had the drive to get somewhere or to see the progress in people. That is ultimately something that I truly look for. So if I have somebody who has done certain things already, so let's say, hey, you hire for a controller basis, and somebody has done that already 3 times versus somebody who is on the point of getting there but really wanting it, and really embracing it and really understanding it, then I'd rather go for the person with maybe less experience, but more drive. Because for me, if you have done it 3 times already, like, why did you want to do it a 4th time?
What's going to motivate you for a fourth time, getting through all the difficult things?
Yeah, exactly. Or does it mean again, after 2 years that somebody, jobs or hops again to a different job,
Yeah.
and wants to do the same thing somewhere else.
Do you value loyalty towards a company? I think you've been quite loyal.
Yeah.
Right? But then in the United States, the culture is different.
Yeah.
For me, it was hard to value resumes I saw in the United States with people doing a career of 10 years with 5 different employers. I was like, huh. And then HR was like, yeah, this is normal here, right?
Yeah.
This is a good resume. Get them in. And I'm like, I'll leave it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a different. I think the generation before us was even more loyal. Of course, I think also in the Netherlands and in Europe, that is changing. Depending on it really goes more and more into, okay, what can you do for me and what can I do for you? I don't necessarily have an issue with that. Of course, in general, it would be nice that if you have somebody in to help develop the person. One of the things that I've done this year also within Doka is to really try to also promote from within, because it wasn't done so much, at least in the finance and the extended kind of areas. If there was a job opportunity, then usually somebody came from outside. Well, you need, I think, to keep people, you need to keep it interesting as well for everyone. So it depends. Why would somebody hop jobs? I would be interested in that, to understand that. And of course, if you switch jobs every year, and maybe it's not a good match, also not with who I am or with who you are, but it also depends, what kind of opportunities there are, of course, for people in that particular company.
Sure.
Or in those particular companies. So I don't necessarily, have a, something that they say like, okay, I find that positive or negative. The other way, of course, is also that if you are somewhere too long, that people will look at it like, why did you never switch?
Exactly.
And that's maybe also part of why I wanted to make my switch after 13 years, which may, how people, maybe like how people look at it, be too late already.
Yeah, that might be, that's personal.
Yeah.
I think the takeaway I have from your story is it all depends. There's not one rule. Just look at the resume, but talk to the person.
Look at the person.
What is the story behind the switching?
Yeah.
And then make up your mind, because it might be a very good reason.
Yes, there's always, you should always listen to people, because they always have a story.
Yeah.
So that is what I always try to do, and what I try to tell people as well. Like, everybody has a story. Like, how can we make sure that the particular person feels completed here, and how can we make maximum use of that particular skill set.
And I like that, because this is a genuine remark you're making. I know the way you operate, and I know the way you handle your employees and manage your team. And the way you do that, to me, there's such a personal involvement within your team, which I like. And I've grown to like that way of working, which I don't see that often within finance positions.
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm trying to say that you are definitely not the stereotypical CFO.
Yeah,
No.
that's true.
Right? If you would draw the typical CFO, for me is much more introverted. At least, and you're the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. And I think that's also what makes it a good fit. To be a little bit different, and to put that in the game. I do think sometimes that probably people indeed do not expect that, or that I'm too enthusiastic, or too outgoing. But it has always worked, and it's truly who I am. And if there's one advice to each and every one, like, never be like somebody else, but be your freaking self, and bring everything to the table what you have.
Which is hard when you're young and inexperienced.
Of course, and I think also for me, also growing up being gay and figuring that out, while already being in business, that also has a certain way of being maybe different from a normal set, what you would expect with a CFO, and then that add the blend in also from not being straight in that whole world with PwC and the more masculine type of cultures. But ultimately I still think I can only be successful if I can bring everything that I have to the table. And I think everybody has that in the end. If you keep things at home, you will not completely flourish.
Yeah.
And that is not something I would want to have, in my teams.
How do you bring that out in people? Because you can say that once or twice, but it's hard. It doesn't really resonate with people when you just say it. How do you
walk the talk? Right.
Also,
if there's a particular issue, or people have a difficult time, or a very, very good time, or celebrate everything that goes well. Align on what doesn't go well, and have a genuine interest in people. I mean, ultimately, everybody has a choice every day to step into work or not step into work. Everybody that works with you or everything got up this morning, and they went into work, and they made a deliberate choice to be there. You made a deliberate choice to be there as well. So you have something in common in that sense. And if you collaborate from that perspective, something good will come out. But it starts, of course, also with just having a general interest in people. What makes them tick? How can you help them? How can it help also what you're trying to achieve? Because it would be BS if I would say, or anybody else, like, I just focus on people because it makes me feel good. Of course there are those people, but ultimately you also want to do it because it helps, in this case, me, or somebody else in a leadership position further. Yeah. It is it goes both ways.
Yeah. It's about being authentic, and people pick it up within seconds, right?
Right.
If I look back at the people I work for, or with, or maybe even the leader that you see on television, you know if they're authentic or not. Within a split second whether it's a charade or whether that's a person who's genuinely interested in the subject they're talking about, or the people they're talking to.
Yeah, and I think I think everybody has that.
Yeah, that's one of the things you do well, and I think in a way you possess a lot of the qualities that a general manager would possess, as opposed to the typical CFO. How would a role like that suit you?
I don't know. It sometimes it does come across. I'm still quite young in that sense. So could it be a possibility in the future? Maybe. But also you need to want it. in that way.
I could see you being in a general manager role and then have a very boring CFO next to you, and then you would know the finance side better than the boring CFO.
Oh, okay.
Right?
No, but I think, you know, ultimately also it is a difference being a CFO or being a CEO. Already from a perspective that you always need to be there, everything ultimately becomes your responsibility, and you can never be the number two.
Right.
Sometimes it's also very nice, like to
in the shadows, maybe sometimes
maybe
when the heat is
to
on.
observe or anything. No, it's not really in my nature, but
No.
it is something completely different to really be responsible for everything.
Yeah.
And it needs to suit you, and it needs to be a proper time, and it needs to be it needs to be a fit. And I haven't figured out whether that's a good fit. I think the good thing about, you know, being a CFO or being a finance leader is that ultimately you can be involved in everything, because ultimately everything becomes financial.
Yeah.
Sometimes you also, you know, whether it's really in your domain or outside of your domain, you can always have an opinion. I think also, you know, the CEOs I worked with, you know, all have a view of, you know, collaboration in that sense. And I think that's also good. You know what I mean? Like, you're a team. As a team, you make certain decisions. And I truly want to be, you know, a left hand, a right hand, whatever is necessary, you know, to get to where we need to be.
Mm-hmm. So you're looking for that team dynamic.
Yes.
Which is not always the case. It could very easy be a more autocratic way of managing a business, depending on the CEO.
Yeah. Of course, and it sets a certain stamp. I mean, ultimately, everybody looks there to see what, you know, what are the priorities, what are what's, you know, the driving culture and everything. And you can have a lot of influence, but you know, maybe also to turn it around, Youp. The funny thing also is that, you know, the further you come, like, the more, you know, it seems like, you know, you have more authority or anything, but there's actually not so much you can actually fully influence.
Right.
You always have to do it through others. I mean, you can say certain things, you can look at certain things, you can give directions, but ultimately it comes to others to fully execute it. And the further I come also, the less influential you actually are.
And you feel that way too.
Yes, you feel, you know, so you also know that it becomes more and more important that you have the right people around you.
You have a large dependency.
Yeah.
Your success is made by the people working with you.
Fully, yeah. So it is also the job that, or I feel that, is to be, you know, a servant leader, and to help those people make the right decisions. I mean, I now have, you know, a role where there's only director levels, you know, directly, you know, reporting into me. Those people in their area know more about what they're doing than I do. And you shouldn't be, you know, hesitant to hire people that are better than you at certain areas.
Yeah.
I would actually, you know, I only want to do that actually.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, you know, I can add a blend of, you know, cohesion and, you know, also learn them something from a different perspective from what I know. But like I'm saying, the actual influence becomes less and less the bigger the company becomes and the higher your actual position is.
Feel strange?
It's different. It actually feels good, because I think 50% of my time is just, you know, working with others to make sure that they can do what they want. I sometimes hope I can remove some bottlenecks and those kind of things, but yeah, it actually feels good to be busy with others and helping them, you know, moving forward.
So you make less and less, well, tangible output, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Over the course of the years.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably that only becomes bigger, or smaller. The actual influence becomes less. And it's strange because maybe when you start, your career and you look up, you think like, oh, they can decide everything, but I don't feel it like that.
Does your future lie in the United States?
I don't know. It could be for now, for the coming years, absolutely. But now I work for a company, of course, that also has European roots. So I'm totally not against coming back to Europe, coming back to the Netherlands. But for now, absolutely. If the right things come along, I'll definitely want to stay in the US, but it's not a given. It could also be Asia in a way. Again, the world is your oyster, and it all depends, on what comes by and what is a fit, for that particular company or role, and where you want to go as a person.
Yeah. For now, plenty to do at Doka before even having to think about that, I guess.
It was an amazing step. It's a whole different ball game and a whole other industry. I'm learning every day, I really love the whole different perspective and working with everyone there. Yeah.
First time we met, we've been on a good run. It's been over 12 years, I think.
Yeah, 12 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 12 years.
Yeah, I got to know you as baby Youp.
I was 20. I was 22, 23, I guess.
Yeah, in Ho Chi Minh City, right? You were doing an internship.
Yep.
At the local company, or the Vietnamese company of FrieslandCampina, and we came there to do a project for risk management, corporate risk management.
I always like to tell this story to virtually any person that I meet. I always like to say that you saved me from a lifelong Vietnamese adventure, because I'm not sure if I would have left otherwise.
Right. Yeah, no, I remember that, also having the discussions with you and you saying, within 5 years, I want to be like, finance director or managing director of the largest, most complex company.
Didn't work out.
Within FrieslandCampina. So it's like, okay, yeah, that's
didn't happen.
Lots of drive, lots of, wanting to accomplish. But it was so great. I remember the conversations where, you said like, no, but I really have a good time. It's like, yes, yeah, I understand, but you
I was
really
having a good time.
Yes,
but Lord.
But you really need to start working on your career. Like, you have plenty of drive and ambition. You would have done great anyway. So don't hang that up on
I
me,
won't.
but,
No. Yeah, I won't. No, it was a special period, and I think those foreign adventures. Everybody I talk to who has done something like that, either in college, or as part of their professional career, it's such a special chapter in your life.
Yeah.
And Vietnam was a year for me, which was exactly that, but also the US, which was 5 years for me, and getting. The only way to make it to close a chapter is to be pulled out or to go away. So in a way, I'm grateful to you that you did it, because it brought me a lot, right?
Right.
But I wouldn't have mind to spend just another year.
More time.
Yeah, another year, I guess.
No, I get it, and I also get the fact, it forms you, of course. The fact that you can travel a lot or spend a lot of time somewhere. Yeah. For me, I was lucky enough, ever since I joined PwC, to travel a lot for work. For FrieslandCampina, I was lucky enough to almost visit every country within that network.
Yeah.
From Nigeria to Vietnam.
30 plus countries.
Yes. So that was amazing as well. Lucky enough, to also do some secondments in, or like limited time in Singapore, and also on the West Coast in the US. And then also settle, really longer term as an expat as well. So it forms you, and whenever somebody gets the opportunity, they should grab it. If they they feel like some people it doesn't fit. It just doesn't, which is fine.
Yeah.
But if it does, it should definitely be part of the development. And I completely understand, if it's part of management development or anything, because it just brings you so much. But it was so fun seeing you also grow from that stage when you were an intern till full-fledged doing management of an entire country. So that was that's amazing to see, and that in itself is for me already a lot of gratitude, I must say.
Yeah, and I like that you have that I have a person like you who has been able to see me making that transition.
Yeah.
Right? It's not too often that you work for such a long period
Time with each other, yeah.
With a person. And we were not always in the same team,
No.
but there was always a
correlation,
falling around or correlation.
And then it sort of like ended also at the same time. With us leaving around the same period,
which was a coincidence.
Yes,
it was a coincidence.
Yeah,
right.
It was. Yeah, you made a decision much earlier already, of course, and we tried to help you transition this year. Which I think went great.
Which is I think another shout out to FrieslandCampina and the way they manage.
Yeah,
that.
Absolutely.
Right? In particular, my situation where I basically gave a year's notice.
Yeah.
Right? And we said, okay, this is my plan. I want to start up as a contractor. How can we make this work?
Yeah.
Which is not the typical way. Definitely not the American way, where you have the 2 weeks notice kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it goes to show that there's a level of trust between the employer and the employee.
Yeah.
Which helps. Making these transitions.
Yeah. And I always feel like also when you have to say goodbye to people, or like you in that sense, that you made your own choice. You never know when you come across someone anymore, or again. So you better do it in a good way. Even if you part ways, it's fine. But still, you can help people transition from A to B, or
even if it's not directly in your favor.
Even if it's not directly in your favor, I think ultimately, it will come back, because people also talk, and I think it's the right way to do. But again, truly, there's a lot of pride in seeing your career and also what you're doing now.
So you're taking credit for it.
I'm not. No, I don't. I don't mean it. I absolutely do not mean it in that way.
In a way, I think you can.
Okay, but that's up to you. But
I will.
But the thing is it's fun to be so involved with somebody, or seeing all the movements, and now sitting here in Amsterdam on the first Saturday of the year.
Yeah.
And having you're trying to do a podcast. Like
I'm trying. You see what's happening here. This is I talked about how demanding he is. Right. You're trying to do a podcast. This is actually just doing a podcast. This is what it is.
This is what it is.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah, maybe I can be like a special guest sometimes, flying in.
We're gonna make you the New York correspondent of Youp's next guest.
Youp's next guest.
We can do a monthly. No, I don't want to. Monthly. It's gonna be a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Right? Yeah, or every Sunday.
Every Sunday. We'll dial in. Like
we'll think of something. Yeah, I think we're full circle.
Think so too.
Thanks for joining and making the trip. Not that you especially flew into Holland for this podcast, but let's make people believe that you did. Right? This is how well we are doing.
This was my year goal. This is like the first goal to accomplish.
Actually, 2024 is
accomplished.
It's done.
It's done.
Okay, now we drink.
Now we drink. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks you.
All right.